In this documentary, we will focus in the two most significant events that set the precedent in the Rhode Island labor history. Most Americans are unaware of the struggles our ancestors endured to secure the right for workers to organize unions and bargain collectively. These rights were paid for by the blood and sacrifice of countless men and women who came before us. Over the past 200 years, unions have won major gains that help not only their members but all society. The first strike, 1824. This little known moment in the United States history was actually the first factory strike in the United States of America. It was predominantly led by women and happened in the Blaston River Valley in the village of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. A small strike, but a huge historical significance as it was not only the first strike in the United States organized by women, but it was the first strike of wage workers at a factory in the country. This was the start of the U.S. labor movement, leading to wave of strike in textile factories across the region and eventually the whole country. A newspaper article regarding the 1824 strike, Providence, Rhode Island, May 31st, quote, "This looks rebellion. The citizens of Pawtucket has for a few days past been in a state of excitement and disorder, which remind us the accounts we frequently read of the tumult of the manufacturing places in the England throughout unattended with the destruction and damage usually accompanying those riders." End of the quote. A second article from the Pawtucket Journal, May 1824, quote, "On Wednesday evening, a tumultuous crowd filled the streets, led by the most unprincipled, disorderly part of the village, and made excessive noise. They visited the houses of the manufacturing, shouting, exclaiming, and using every imaginable term of abuse and insult. The windows in the yellow mill was broken in. The next day, the manufacturer shut the gate, and the mills have not run since." End of the quote. What prompted such reaction? What had ignited the first factory strike in the United States history in the village of Pawtucket, Rhode Island? We all know Samuel Slater, the father of the American Industrial Revolution. He successfully started the first working water power textile manufacturing mill in the United States in 1790 along the banks of Blaston River at the Pawtucket Falls. Slater, utilizing the English system of manufacture, relied heavily upon child labor. Children were seen as obedient and cheap source of labor. In the 1812, many small mills went out of business. For the first time, mill laborers were not in high demand. With a large pool of unemployed mill workers, mill owners decided to lower wages. If workers didn't like it, they could easily find a replacement. But by the 1820s, The face of labor in Rhode Island system was changing after the introduction of power loom. More young women were introduced to the workforce. Children were not able to maneuver the newer, more powerful looms as easily as their spinning machines. So ages 15 to 30 were brought in to operate this new technology. Power loom weavers was almost exclusively women, and mill owners felt as though these women were getting paid far more than they deserved. Mill, the mill owners decided to lower women's wages, thinking the women would possibly accept this mandate. They were wrong. Discontent has been brewing in the village for decades. Individual workers had long expressed their rights to the mill owners. Slater himself was forced to shut down his mill numerous times due to a shortage of laborers. But by the 1820s, the table had turned. With unemployed workers searching for jobs, the owners could impose their will. But these powerloom weavers would not stand for it. On May 24, 1824, mill owners of Pawtucket decided to increase the working day by 1 hour, cutting into the break time of mill operatives, and decrease the wages of powerloom weavers by 25%. On May 26, 102 women workers, accompanied by sympathetic community members and co-workers, gathering around the entrance of the mills, blocking anyone from entering. The women held a meeting and determined not to return to work until the all hours and rates are restored. They call it a tornado. The local community joined in. The co-workers, both men, women, and children, joined in support. Local farmers and mechanics also rose in support of the young woman. Over the next week, demonstrations ensued across the village. Mill owners' homes were targeted by bands of yelling and rock-throwing supporters. On May 27, George Yank recorded, quote, Josiah Mill's shop is literally filled with men, women, and children making a mob of very dating aspect, insulting the managers of cotton mills in every shape, pulling and howling, screaming and shouting throughout the street. But they have mostly now dispersed, and what is to be the next, the Lord only knows. End quote. Finally, on the 9th of June 1st, 1824, when an incendiary device was thrown into Walco Mill, causing a small fire, although there was no substantial evidence to indicate how the fire started. The fire was most likely ignited by the striking workers. This was the moment that defeated the mill owners. The following day, on June 2nd, the owners met to find a solution. They reached an agreement with the workers, but the details are unknown. Mill reopened with workers at their machines on June 3rd. Sadly, no record for the striking women survived, so they remain anonymous in history. The walkout of 1824 was the first of its kind. No historical records from the perspective of the workers exist, but their story is not lost. The 1934 Sellersville Massacre.
I was just surprised that anybody wanted to unionize down here. We thought, things were going along so great. Here's Daddy here running the mills and looking after you so good.
My grandmother told my mother that she would rather see her take my brother and me to the graveyard than to bring us to be brought up on the cotton mill village.
They thought that was the trash of the world, cotton mill folks, you know. Everybody thought it.
Say them old cooler mill, cotton mill trash, lint heads.
Lint heads, if that's what we are, a lint head, I'm proud to be one of them.
Call them lint heads, you call them every damn thing. It was a pretty good job if you think about it.
You just feel like you got somebody behind you, pushing, wanting more and more and more to give you less and less. It's just a downright bad feeling.
We had a job for them if they wanted it. If they didn't, all they had to do was go back to the hills.
People too darn sorry to pay anybody enough to live on because they're afraid they're going to get a little bit ahead and then they can't get them to work for that. Like a man told me up in North Georgia, keep a man hungry and he'll work. That's the truth.
That kind of environment puts scars on people that they never heal. You live with those the rest of your life.
In the 1934, the United States saw major labor unrest with over 1,800 strikes and more than 1.5 million workers involved. The Great Depression severely impacted the textile industry and layoff forced workers to work longer hours without extra pay, a practice known as stretch outs. The United Textile Workers (UTW) experienced a rapid growth, increasing from 15,000 members in 1933 to nearly 250,000 in 1934, mainly due to the 1933 National Industrial Recovery Act, which legalized unions. At their August convention, members frustrated by poor working conditions voted 561 to 10 in favor of the national strike. This marked a turning point for labor in Rhode Island. A Great Depression brought economic hardship to many families. Unemployment soared, and workers were desperate for change. This era saw the rise of powerful strikes, including the 1934 textile strike in Woonsocket and Sellersville, which became one of the most significant labor actions in Rhode Island history. Workers demanded better wages and working conditions, as their determination led to significant victories. In the 1934, Rhode Island's textile industry experienced its most enormous boom since the Civil War, as selling cloth to the government made many people wealthy. One of the issues the United Textile workers had with mill management, not only in Rhode Island but in the entire Northeast, was the outsourcing of the significant portion of the textile industry. Mill management was outsourcing those jobs to the people in the South because they could hire them at a much lower rate. The United Textile Workers sought to establish a minimum wage scale to mitigate this disparity and ensure that the workers in the textile mill in the North received the same compensation as those in the South. The management reaction in Sellersville and nationwide was to cut their pay, increase worker workload, and deteriorate working conditions, not only in the mills in Sellersville, Rhode Island, but also in Woonsocket and around the country. This was the main reason the United Textile Workers tried to demand better wages and working conditions from management, as well as an end to the stretch-out conditions that were occurring at the milk factories.
Strike or no strike, my family comes first. So I'm not going to quit until they make me.
I am 17 years of age. My job in the mill is to fill 34 loom magazines. I earn $3.50 a week, trying to support a family of 4 on this wage.
I'm a textile worker, and I'm not making much money. But at least I got a job, and that's better than nothing, and they won't get me to strike.
I've been a textile mill worker for 20 years. Today, I am doing more work and getting less pay than I ever did before.
And I have said to our people, hit back! And I'm saying to you in Rhode Island, if you're hit, there is but one nose. Hit back! Hit as hard as you can, and I'll be with you.
To yield to this threat of strike would be to abandon the principles of NRA during a crisis in the country's struggle for economic and social recovery. This we are unwilling to do. In this time of the nation's difficulties, we appeal to the common sense of the people for support of the orderly processes of the National Recovery Act as against industrial warfare.
In 1934, the United Textile Workers launched a nationwide strike, starting the day after Labor Day. In Rhode Island, the strike was very successful, but the Selfsville plant refused to close. The strikers picketed outside to stop the strike breakers. The mill owners hired deputy sheriffs to guard the mill. The deputies attacked the striker using tear gas, even on children working to school, and then opened fire, injuring the people. The National Guard stepped in, but the mill owner refused to remove the strike breakers. In Selfsville, Rhode Island, over the course of the textile strike of 1934, 4 individuals were shot and killed by the National Guard. In Rhode Island, at least 13 people were hit by gunfire. That's not including hundreds of people who were hurt in rock throwing and tear gas. The strikers planned to approach the mill from behind, throwing rocks and any other objects they could find at the building in an effort to persuade the workers inside to join the strike. The breakers intimidated them and made them come out. The strikers wanted to shut down the mill. The National Guard arrived and lined up between the mill and the strikers. At some point, it's unclear what triggered the event, but the National Guard decided to open fire on the strikers. 4 individuals who lost their life in the 1934 textile strike in Rhode Island. Charles Gosinski, who was shot at Selfsville Cemetery, was 18 years old. Before his death, he played on his high school football team. William Blackwood, a 44 years old Irish immigrant, had already lost his wife and young daughter during childbirth. He faced numerous hardships after arriving in America. During the strike, he was shot in the head so severely that when he was taken away by ambulance, his hat was found with 2 bullet holes in it. Mr. Gosinski and Jules Cortimage died within hours. Williams Blackwood survived for almost a month but later died from his injuries. And Leo Rhode survived for 2 weeks before dying. 300 workers attended Gosinski's funeral. For Jules Cortimage's funeral, the crowd filled the streets from his home to the cemetery. These men were true working-class heroes. Theodore Francis Green, the governor of Rhode Island, ordered the mills shut down on September 13, and that brought hostilities to an end. The Two Holes headstone. The Sellersville Cemetery has a monument marking the tragedy of September 12, 1934, in the Jewish section. A marble headstone approximately an inch thick displayed two distinct bullet exit holes. Those holes were caused when the National Guard fired indiscriminately at the striker. The notion of 8-hour day, 4-hour week, as well as sick time, personal time, and vacation time was established as an accomplishment of the labor movement, not only in Rhode Island, but also in the United States. Unfortunately, the 1934 strikers did not immediately accomplish the primary goal. However, it laid the foundation for the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, which established minimum wages nationwide.